Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates, and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's Zola.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Maybe you're settled at home alone or with loved ones, covered in blankets, about to watch your favorite show. It's cozy, it's calm, and you're ready for a perfect night in. Therapy can feel a bit like that, a place for comfort, a time when you replenish your energy and take care of yourself. And hey, you can even do it without leaving that same cozy couch. This season is the perfect time to give therapy a try, right from the comfort of home. With BetterHelp, get matched with a tailored therapist based on your needs and preferences entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Welcome, friends, it's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast, enjoy the show. Jackie and Brian are talking about movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
Welcome to MovieFilm. It's episode 307, brought to you by Mr. Boy Productions. I'm Zachy Hassan. I'm here with Brian Hall.
Hey, how's it going, Zachy?
Hey, we're closing out. We're closing out 2024.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, this is Monday, December 30th.
We're squeezing in under the wire, right as the year is closing.
Yep. How's it been? How's it been for you? I mean, is this like a nice sort of holiday season for you so far?
It's been very nice. It's been relaxing. I would say I've been watching a lot of movies and stuff, but being honest, I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I've been. I was gonna, it's not like I've been out like hiking and doing that, which like I should be doing. Instead, I've spent a lot of time scrolling through choices and then not choosing anything.
It's funny. I hear that. This time of year, I love watching a lot of Christmas movies, and something was just like a little off this year, and I found myself like, yeah, I'll get to that. I'll watch that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, like you said, I kept scrolling over things, and then also this is the time of year. There's a lot of awards consideration type movies out, right? And I just feel like there's so many of them, but you get sort of busy, and my family was out here for Christmas, which was wonderful, and got to hang out with them. And so now I'm in that moment right now where I feel like I'm about to catch up on a lot of things. Like even tonight, I'm seeing Nosferatu tonight. I'll probably see A Complete Unknown later this week. So I look forward to talking about those, but there's a lot to watch.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, well, and I also had to get in my 900th viewing of Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, so that took priority this past week.
Yeah, I watch Home Alone as I tend to do, and then it was half the cavalcade was like, oh, we got to watch Die Hard.
Yeah, sure.
And then the other half is not old enough to watch Die Hard, but they wanted to watch Die Hard, and I was like, well, you can't yet.
Yeah.
So I think we settled on Batman Returns as sort of the Socratic ideal.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a Christmas movie.
And I will. Well, what I will say about Batman Returns is that my estimation of that film has only grown over the years. I've always, I've always enjoyed it. I've always liked it, but I'm like, it's just a good movie, in my opinion.
I agree. I've always liked that movie.
But what else have you seen?
Well, first things first, before I get to that, I do want to shout out that Juror Number 2, the most recent Clint Eastwood movie, which I mentioned maybe an episode or two back, is now streaming on Max.
Yes.
So it is available. I definitely recommend that movie. I think it feels like a great 90s, almost like Grisham-y throwback kind of thing, where it's like a tense, what would you do drama. And Nicholas Holt's in that. And I just really enjoyed it. And I think people will also. It's a shame Warner Brothers didn't do a better job of that in its theatrical run. I think it might have done at least moderately well.
It is weird, by the way, that the phrase, it's a shame Warner Brothers didn't do a better job with that, is like evergreen for the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, what are those like word diagrams where you see certain words are bigger than others because they've been mentioned with like a certain frequency? So for like 2024, like if Warner's had just handled this better, it's like one of the bigger words in the bubble. But no, so what I have seen, speaking of Nicholas Holt, I watched a movie called The Order. And this is one I feel like I've kind of seen, film critics and people really love this movie, but it didn't really catch on, I think, with bigger audiences. It kind of came and went. But when I went and saw it, my theater was full. So it felt like the people who were interested did show up for it. Basically, The Order, it's a pretty well done, grounded take on true events that took place in the Pacific Northwest in the early 80s, where a white supremacist group was robbing banks. And so this is not to be confused with the Heath Ledger movie from like 20 years ago. No, what's that? I don't know. I just know there's a Heath Ledger movie called The Order from. Oh, interesting. No, but I think that's part of the problem, to be honest, Brian, is it is an extremely generic title. I've been having now. I mean, this is like getting in the weeds here a little bit of our personal lives, but like playing Cinematrix every morning. It drives me crazy. This morning, Saoirse Ronan was one of the people, and I was like, I know she was in an Agatha Christie style mystery film with Sam Rockwell like 2 years ago, but I'll be damned if I can't remember the name of it because it wasn't super specific to the film itself. It was like a knockabout time around town or something, and I'm like, how am I supposed to remember that? I remember having a hard time remembering it when I saw it, like wanting to go see it. And I was like, yeah, the Saoirse Ronan mystery movie. I don't, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's a really good point, Zach. Anyway, there's my frustration from this morning, but, The Order, no. So, okay. So true story, early 80s, Pacific Northwest, this white supremacist group is robbing banks, and an FBI agent, played by Jude Law, teams up with the local lawman to try to figure out why. What are they doing? What are they?
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Is it curling up on the couch for a cozy, peaceful night in? Therapy can feel a bit like that. Your comfort place where you replenish your energy. With BetterHelp, get matched with a therapist based on your needs, entirely online. It's convenient and suited to your schedule. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Intending to do with this money. So what's interesting about this movie is I would say it's really well done, but it doesn't dig too deep into its characters. It's kind of one of those films that's a little like just the facts in its execution, which is kind of cool in a way. Like, I mean, I enjoyed learning about an event that I didn't know about.
Right.
But it doesn't dig too deep into the characters, like I say, but the actors bring a lot to it. I mean, these are great performances here, and they make everyone feel interesting and dimensional anyway. It's funny. Halfway through it kind of reminded me of those true crime documentaries that have extensive recreations.
Okay.
Like I used to watch this thing on Vice. It was called How to Rob a Bank, and I really loved it because it was just a 1 hour recreation of someone was narrating it. The real people from the story were narrating it, but it was like a 1 hour recreation of these people and how they rob these banks. So this reminded me kind of that, but with like an excellent director and cinematographer and actors,
Okay.
So it doesn't dig as deep into the interpersonal drama or psychology in a way that like a crime film like The Departed does.
Okay.
Which, I would argue with The Departed, the interpersonal stuff is equally as interesting as the crime parts of it, right? So I missed that a little bit from this, but again, the performances elevate it anyway. It was a pretty engaging watch. And I appreciated learning about events I wasn't aware of. So at the end of the day, I don't know that it's something people need to see, but for people who are interested in true crime stories, I do think this was pretty well done, and I think those people will enjoy it.
Okay.
So
it was somewhat on my radar only because of the Jude Law factor, but your recommendation is making me want to check it out more.
Yeah, like I said, I think for people who like these types of films, they're going to appreciate it for the performances, and the execution of the heists themselves are pretty interesting. There's an armored car thing that's pretty fascinating to watch. Oh, and Nicholas Hoult is in this playing the leader of the white supremacist faction, and he's really good.
He's getting around, isn't he?
That juror number 2, I thought he was great. Seeing him in the Superman trailer, yeah, he's definitely having a moment.
I just saw a video on YouTube where it's a reunion between him and Hugh Grant.
Oh, okay.
Because he was in About a Boy,
right? Which I've never seen, but I know people like.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just very funny because it's these two very British guys having this discussion. But Hugh Grant, what you realize about Hugh Grant is he was always a curmudgeonly old man, but his body caught up with him.
Interesting. Yeah, it's like his boyish face betrayed the grittiness underneath or something. But now
he's kind of a cranky old guy. In an endearing way, I would say. I don't,
Yeah.
But definitely, like the skin he wore in the '90s as like a heartthrob, you realize it was always he wore it uncomfortably.
That's really a funny observation. I guess I never really thought about that. But yeah, his foppishness sort of made you like, oh, Hugh.
Yeah.
But he was always kind of a cranky old man inside.
Yeah.
And he's doing it using that to great effect now. I haven't seen Heretic, I think it's called, but I'd heard decent things about it. So it's kind of fun.
That was the context of the conversation. It was Nicholas Hoult has the Order, Hugh Grant has has Heretic, and so hey, let's get these two together and just And Nicholas Hoult is now a grown man. He has children of his own, and it's like seeing that discussion very, very interesting. I found it.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, yeah, I'm very curious. It feels like definitely a new phase of Hugh Grant's career where he can play like an Oompa Loompa. He can
put Divine Brown in the rearview mirror. Which let's think about that for a second. Let's think about the fact that as a high school sophomore, I knew the name Divine Brown.
And that I remember it to this day, but I don't remember where, Valley Forge or the years.
Yeah, that happened. No, but I know the name of the prostitute who gave Hugh Grant to BJ. Well, that's Divine Brown, by goodness. What? Like we talk about how society has sort of fallen down recently, and I would offer, no, we've been there for a while.
Right. Well, as recently as this year, he made a joke about that. I forgot what it was. I wasn't prepared for this, but he was on some talk show, and they were
you weren't prepared for the Divine Brown discussion. Why are you not always prepared for that, Brian?
I know. I should have had this on hand already. But he was talking about something about Sunset. They were talking about a premiere Sunset Boulevard or something. He's like, well, Sunset Boulevard has always been good to me. And it was funny. I'm paraphrasing, but it was a joke in that order. But it was funny because it took the audience a second to catch up to him.
Oh.
And you see him sort of do it and like, and then everyone goes, oh, and he kind of laughs and I was like, you know what? Do it before they do. You know what I mean? Like if he can be good natured about that and continue to make jokes that make us laugh with him, that's pretty smart.
I still remember that the like the night after that happened, or the week, like very shortly thereafter, he was scheduled to be on the Tonight Show.
Oh, yeah. People our age, how could you forget?
Right. And so it was like, is he going to do it? Is he going to show? And he showed up.
Uh-huh.
And the first thing Jay Leno says, "What the hell were you thinking?"
I mean, it's at least in terms of 90s pop culture, that's an iconic moment. Yep.
And if I remember correctly, because when Leno had, the Jay Leno show, that misbegotten, primetime thing, remember he did that
with the whole Conan kerfluffle.
Exactly. So this would have been like 09, I think. He had Kanye scheduled for like the night after the thing at the Grammys.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if he did that again.
Yeah.
What the hell were you thinking? Yeah. So Hugh Grant, good for him.
Yeah. Have you seen Jay Leno lately? He keeps hurting himself.
I saw that he caught fire or something like that.
He caught fire recently and had to have, I don't know, like skin grafts or whatever. And then he fell down a hill recently, and his face looks, all black and blue. And
really?
Yeah. It's pretty intense injury or bruise. Excuse me.
Yeah, I know about because I saw an interview with him shortly after the fire thing. He was working on a car engine, something. I mean, we can assume most of his injuries are car related, probably.
Yeah.
But he I guess he required some kind of skin graft or something.
Yeah, it makes me, I just hate seeing older people get injured like that.
Absolutely. And he's like, everything's fine, And I'm like, dude, it's okay to be like, I got hurt, Yeah.
Just don't touch it, all right? I saw a funny thing, as long as we're down this tangent. I saw this funny thing where I guess there was a rumor going around that maybe he owed money to the mob. So,
oh no!
Yeah, so someone actually asked him about it, and he was like, "Do you really think if the mob was after me, they wouldn't just go after one of my cars? Instead of pushing me down the hill at like a Marriott and like,
he'd wake up and there's a carburetor in his bed."
Wait, would he go high or would he go low? Oh no! He does. The camera. I don't know.
Anywho, what else have you seen?
It's gonna be a hard pivot, Zach.
Yeah, I don't know how to transition out of that.
No, but I watched a documentary called "From Darkness to Light."
Okay,
are you familiar with this?
The name sounds very familiar, but refresh my memory.
Okay, so this was on Turner Classics about a week ago. This is about the Jerry Lewis lost film, The Day the Clown Cried.
Yes. Okay. Oh, everybody's talking about this recently.
Okay, so for people who are not familiar, The Day the Clown Cried. Let's go back even further. So you have Jerry Lewis, who's a comedy icon, right? In the 50s, 60s, whatever. Nutty Professor, wacky. It's sort of like Jim Carrey-esque kind of figure. I'm sure someone older than me would be like, excuse me? Like Jim Carrey is a Jerry Lewis type figure. But you understand what I'm saying. Anyway, so his career was kind of, waning a little bit. And in the early 70s, a script was presented to him, which was, bear with me, it's about a clown who winds up in a concentration camp. And he ends up using his sort of clown techniques and jokes and silliness to entertain the children. And the movie ends with him. The Nazi soldiers say, we'll basically take care of you if you do something for us, which is entertain the kids, acting like a clown, and lead them into a gas chamber. And he does that. And that's him acting like a clown, leading kids into a gas chamber. But he feels so guilty, he stays in there with them. Things go the way they go, and then the movie ends. So,
cool.
Hopefully your skin is crawling. Mine is. Yeah. It's just, when you hear that, you're like, how could I don't know. That just sounds, incredibly misguided.
So Jerry Lewis reads this script and he's like, "This is it. Stop drilling. You've hit oil."
Yeah. So he sees a way that this can probably be some sort of stirring drama, right?
Yeah.
And be, a lot of comedians try to find that serious.
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Is it curling up on the couch for a cozy, peaceful night in? Therapy can feel a bit like that, your comfort place where you replenish your energy. With BetterHelp, get matched with a therapist based on your needs entirely online. It's convenient and suited to your schedule. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Role for themselves, and maybe he sees a new sort of tool in his toolbox with this or something. I mean, that sounds very cynical, but you know what I mean. Sure. So anyway, he shoots the movie, and there's a lot of complications with producers, financing, and then also the movie just not really coming together the way that he imagined it. So he decides, but he talks about it quite a bit. He's on talk shows. Everybody knows this movie exists, but then they decide in the final hour not. First of all, it doesn't get completed, but then he also basically disavows it and says it'll never see the light of day. Mm-hmm. And so inevitably, this movie that will never see the light of day, that's about Jerry Lewis playing a clown in a concentration camp doing these insane things, it makes your imagination run wild. And then, of course, it becomes like an urban legend type of film, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it kind of went away for a little while, but toward the end of his life, people were reminded of it and started asking him a lot of questions about it. So naturally, the mystery grows and grows and grows. It becomes this, phantom of a movie that you're just like, what could that possibly be? That sounds incredibly misguided, and that must be nuts. Oh, and to make it even crazier, Harry Shearer, speaking of, oh wait, no, that was off mic. We were talking about him. Anyway, Harry Shearer has seen it.
Yes. So, okay. So that I have in my YouTube history, because I wanted to watch it, a video of Howard Stern talking to Harry Shearer about it.
Yes. So do you want to talk about that then?
Well, I haven't seen it. So
I'm sorry.
Somebody was like, "Oh, you got to check this out." I was like, "I don't have time now," and then I put it in my, so that I can get back to it.
Well, basically, he has only helped propel its mystery and its sort of infamy, because he is like, "Oh, it's a disaster. Think of whatever you're thinking of. It's worse." Is basically what he says. Okay. Just unintentionally, it's clumsy. It's misguided is the word I keep thinking of. So anyway, cue this documentary, which airs on TCM about a week before Christmas or so, mm-hmm. and it's fascinating. They get a lot of the people who worked on the film to talk about it. They get a final interview. Well, no, final at least maybe on this subject of before Jerry Lewis passed away, answering any question these filmmakers have about this movie. And he's basically like, look, my intentions were good. It didn't work. It was a failure. And so I have set it aside.
Yeah.
Adding to the sort of urban legendy mystery part of it, it was also said he would never allow it to be viewed or any footage of it while he was alive. Right, but I think he donated it to the Library of Congress, and he said it could be viewed 10 years after his death.
Okay.
Or something like that. So, I mean, again, how is that not like so intriguing? Right. Anyway, but the real, one of the main reasons to watch this documentary is they show huge chunks of this movie for the first time.
Okay.
So you see these moments. You see him leading the children. You see him playing, these little games and whatever, making the children laugh, and him interacting with the soldiers and stuff. And it is almost like you're watching something you're not supposed to see, or like it feels a little haunted or something. So for anyone who is interested in this story, I would definitely say it's worth it. Here's the problem, Zachy. It aired on TCM. I did the DVR, whatever you do with YouTube TV. I saved it.
Yeah.
My family comes out here. Christmas happens. I'm like, all right, let's watch this documentary. Not available.
That's
not
what I'm seeing.
Available. I went on Apple TV, all these other places that apparently had it, at least for a moment. Not available. So now this documentary itself has become sort of mysterious. I am not advocating for this. But if one were to Google watch From Darkness to Light, there are avenues. There are people out there who recorded it and have it on Google Drives and things like that. And frankly, again, I'm not advocating, but I am going to say it's a weird thing to make this and have it be very good, and then to suddenly make it unavailable to everybody.
But is there some explanation for that?
Not that I'm aware of. But I mean, even for purchase or to pay for rental, I mean, that I would pay for it, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand the decision making in that, but I will say yes, for people who are interested in this story, I think they will find a lot.
How long is the documentary?
Like 2 hours or just under.
Okay.
But yeah, hearing him speak about it, hearing people who were there working on it speak about it is interesting, and seeing the footage itself, which by the way is now, I don't think it's been 10 years since Lewis has passed, but it is available to view at the Library of Congress. I think you can make an appointment and go in there and watch it, but it's my understanding, there was an article recently, someone went and watched it, and it's not a film. It's not a 2-hour film. It's 5 hours of footage, and I think the film is in there somewhere, but it's also a lot of raw footage and behind the scenes. And
so at some point, Jerry Lewis looks at this collection of dailies, and he has a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, maybe, I don't know. He doesn't say this, but I wonder if people got in his ear a little bit.
Sure.
But there was a lot of complications at the end. He had to fund millions of his own money at the end to even finish it because the financing fell through. Oh no, sorry, I'm forgetting a key part of this, which I guess I'm spoiling a little bit. The shady producer that he worked with didn't secure the rights.
Oh.
And isn't that insane?
That's nuts.
Yes. So
he just started shooting this thing without
yes, which Lewis is like trusting this producer.
Wow. And
the producer then eventually, it's based on a book, and it's a little bit different, I think, than the film, but similar. Its bones are similar. Anyway, but yes, it comes to light that basically they don't own the rights. Like, they can't release this film. And I think the author was then shown a cut of it and was like, no, thank you. So.
Wow. Okay.
And even me telling all this, it's still fascinating to watch if you can get a hold of it. Yeah, I mean, I think you would be interested in this.
Well, everything you said had me like, oh man, I got to track it down. And then as you're speaking, I'm saying not available, not available, and then you realize this was like, oh, okay, it was a unicorn of a thing.
It's just so odd. I mean, again, I guess it does make it. It did make me work hard to find it, which is maybe, like, I don't know, you go on your own little treasure journey or something, but. Anyway, but
it does get to how, people are like, oh, I got it saved in my online DVR or whatever. It's like, well, not really.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah.
I just canceled YouTube TV.
Did you? I'm fascinated because it crossed my mind. So tell me your decision making.
They raised the price again.
Yep.
Right. And I'm kind of reaching FU Google, proportion right now.
I have to admit, I'm getting there with Disney. Disney Plus. They've gone up. It started around $80 a year, and now it's at they wanted to renew at $140 this year, and then they were going to raise it even further 2 weeks after you resubscribed, which to me feels like mustache twirly. Like they're like tricking you.
It's a racket, man.
Yeah. So then at the end of the day, for the first time. I mean, you and I are huge consumers of entertainment, so I mean, it makes sense for us to we get our bang for our buck out of a lot of these subscriptions.
Yes.
But now I'm, for the first time, taking a step back and evaluating which ones do I actually get bang for buck out of.
That's my issue, because when I started YouTube TV, it was like $45 or something,
Yeah.
And that was just pound for pound. That was a really good deal.
Yeah.
But what's happened is that they raised it again. It's like 85 or something, and I'm like, this is suddenly we're talking real money,
Yeah, and I mean, for me personally speaking, I add on HBO and those sorts of things, so it adds up.
I cut the cord 10 years ago because at that time it was like a couple streaming services that basically had you covered.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the Stone Age, but it was Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hulu. Hulu had your new shows for almost all the broadcast networks the morning after. And you were out of pocket about like less than $30.
Yeah, right.
This is what a halcyon era that was, right? and then a couple of years later, and then obviously you started to see the great fracturing as all the companies started reclaiming their things and creating their own streaming services. So where we're at now is inevitable. Mm-hmm. But YouTube TV at the time, it was like value added because it's like the streaming services plus YouTube TV. You're still looking at about $50-$60 total, which is still far less than you're paying for cable. It's reached a point now where it's like, well, I cut the cord because it's just getting too expensive, and it's like, how much am I watching this stuff? It's not like I have any shortage of things to watch.
Dude, you're so right, but I maybe I'm a creature of my time, but like there is something I love about flipping channels and discovering.
I agree, and so I'm curious because I'm not saying it's going to be a permanent shift for me. I may come crawling back to YouTube TV, but at least for now, I'm like, well, I'd sure prefer having that $85 in my pocket.
You're so right. You're so right.
My kids, these children, Brian.
Yes.
Like, you canceled YouTube TV. What are we going to watch? They said. I wanted to smack all of them all in a row, like the Three Stooges, just on their head, just yeah. Because I'm like, I don't know, one of the 18 other streaming services we have.
By the way, literally, this is so weird you say the Three Stooges. For the first time in probably 10 or 12 or 15 years, I watched part of the Three Stooges last night just because I was flipping and I went, oh, wow, the Three Stooges.
Yeah. I mean, you do lose that.
Yeah, like weird sorts of, this is not the best example, but it's off the top of my head. I was flipping and on Turner Classics, Summer of 42 was on. I was like, oh, I'm familiar with this. I was kind of curious about this movie. And so I just stored it away and then I watched it and I enjoyed it. And it's like, but I would have never thought, it takes me down these little avenues. Or when I rewatched Saving Private Ryan recently, which I really got something out of, it was only because I was flipping and it was on and it was just starting. And so there's a little, for me, a little magic in that. But
no, I fully agree with you because that accounts for a lot of the stuff I end up watching.
Yeah.
Is exactly that. I mean, maybe I'm channel surfing across The Day the Clown Cried. And what if I miss out on that opportunity, Brian?
That's exactly.
The Day the Clown Cried, interspersed with commercials for, Sunny D or
right. Or like, yeah, those like really, I have told this story before, but those really awkward like KY vibrator ads that play during Miracle on 34th Street while I'm trying to watch it with my family. Like, get it together, people. Well, real quick, I just want to mention this. I won't talk about it too long. But speaking of Netflix, Squid Game 2 has arrived. So Squid Game, which was a phenomenon a couple of years ago, the biggest series in the world, which for people who aren't familiar, it's basically about, it takes place in Korea and it's about down and out people who are in debt, who opt to play a series of games where the reward for winning is a lot of money, but the punishment is a brutal death.
Okay.
And they're like children's games. It's really violent, really, really dark, but it feels like it should not be something that I enjoy, but somehow I just find it really compelling and entertaining and watchable. But anyway, so huge hit. Netflix, it goes to its creator. It's like, hey, make more. And I remember the creator saying, dude, I got nothing. I don't know what to do next. And he was feeling the pressure. And I wouldn't either. I mean, it comes to kind of an ending.
Yeah.
How do you go back, and make it feel fresh and innovative and not just a repeat of the first one? And Zachy, by gum, he did it.
Really? Oh, okay.
It's funny because I really enjoyed it. I watched it. My sister-in-law was out visiting, and we were just sitting on the couch like, oh, there's this Squid Game thing people are talking about. I don't know. You want to watch it? And it was really violent and weird, but intriguing. And we somehow went through the whole thing together, and it just became this really memorable experience. And, but I haven't thought about it. That's the kind of thing in this streaming age, right? Where the second season of shows may come 2 years, 3 years later.
Right.
So even hearing this was dropping, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get to it. Anyway, turned it on. And I only have one episode left now. I just went right through the whole thing. And what I think is kind of brilliant, the approach was he sort of did a Back to the Future 2 sort of thing, which is, well, you have to go back. You have to go back to the gaming grounds. But what if we look at it from a different perspective? What if the character has a different perspective this time? Add these different sorts of twists. So we do get the quote unquote pleasures of season 1, but from a whole new perspective.
Right.
So it does repeat itself, but we're looking at it a different way and with different characters involved. And
so it's set concurrent to the first season. Is that what you're saying?
No, sorry. I realize that is confusing what I said. No, it doesn't go back into the first season. It is.
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's Zola.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Is it curling up on the couch for a cozy, peaceful night in? Therapy can feel a bit like that. Your comfort place where you replenish your energy. With BetterHelp, get matched with a therapist based on your needs, entirely online. It's convenient and suited to your schedule. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Another games 3 years later.
I see. Okay.
But the games themselves, like being in the MC Escher pink stairwell, and the games are somewhat the same, but they find a new way to turn those games on their head a little bit, because now we have a player who kind of knows what's going on, and he can direct them a little bit.
So, because the same cast returns.
Well, a lot of the main cast was killed in the first season. I was wondering. And so we do have some returning characters, is what I'll say. And how they use some of those characters is very interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, this show, like I said, this is so violent and something that it feels like something I shouldn't really like. But what I think makes it work is its characters. The characters are really interesting and compelling. And there's a mother-son duo in the games together right now that I just find they make me smile, and they also make me anguish. They're dynamic, and the paces they're put through in here together, and how do you compete to save your own life when you're also having to look out for your mom or look out for your son? And it's really good. It reminds me of 24 in that way, when a new season would start and you're like, well, am I going to care about these characters as much as I did in the previous season when they introduced new characters? And I do. I think this is really good. I think that's the main thing that keeps me invested in this show, is it's really interesting characters. And I also think there's something deceptively brilliant about the look of the show, how it's so bright and cheery.
Right.
And it's so, it instead of feeling like hostile and taking place in some damp, gross room, which would make it just feel kind of nihilistic, it somehow subconsciously tricks you into thinking that maybe everything could be all right, but you still have that life or death tension as they play their games, as they go through these horrifying sorts of trials.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's pretty brilliant for whatever it is. And it is, I mean, for people who are curious, it is very violent, very dark.
Okay.
Pretty grim, but weirdly compelling. It pulls it off, and it makes someone like me have to go through every episode. So I think they did it. They pulled it off again for season 2 here. And I have one left, and I'm almost kind of sad it's almost over.
Nice. Okay. Well, and you also had a chance to revisit Gladiator 2.
Yes. My brother hadn't seen it in theaters, and I got to call you out. You got it on your Vudu, and I was like, hey, Zachy.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be available for streaming like 3 weeks after it came out in theaters or something crazy like that.
Yeah, well, and Wicked, which is still performing well, is apparently going to be streaming as of tomorrow, the 31st. Wow. So, I mean, that's just the new paradigm, right?
Well, it tells you something. It says that the movies that are theatrical experiences will continue to be theatrical experiences, I guess.
And yeah, I mean, for the people who I think they realize will watch this movie over and over and pay for it, but can't get to the theater.
Yeah.
Well, let's make it available for both of those audiences. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's brilliant.
So how did Gladiator 2 work for you?
I would say I connected with it slightly more than I did the first time, but I think overall my feelings are still the same.
Yeah. That's basically me.
Did you watched it again?
I did, yeah, and sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, I want to hear it.
But the main critique I had all along was making Lucius Maximus' son doesn't make a lot of story sense, and that's still the case to me, because the move it's like two twists. Twist number one being, oh my gosh, this is Lucius, right?
Yeah,
because the movie does not. Like, it sets that up as a reveal, right? And I'm like, well, that's twist enough.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need and by the way, you're also Maximus' son. Because the movie treats that, this is what I thought. I was like, did Ridley Scott forget, like, the original movie? Because there is nothing textual in the first movie to lead you to think that Lucius is Maximus' son. There's no implication of that.
100%.
Nothing. 100%. It is not like some hidden message. It's just not in there.
Yes.
And the movie treats it as, oh yeah, we all know that, right? It's like, no, we don't.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned when we talked about the review, I don't really love what it does to Maximus's character.
Yeah.
When like his main motivation in the first film is his wife.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, honestly, my thought, and I'm sure I mentioned this when we talked about it earlier, but definitely having rewatched, I'm like, Pedro Pascal should have been the main character. Like, I would have happily watched a whole movie about his arc,
Either that, because he is Maximus, but a little different.
Yeah, a little different, exactly.
But or he's just didn't have they could have gotten more out of him and his dynamics with the people involved, I feel.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Out of Pascal or
Yeah, sorry, I'm speaking vague because I'm trying not to get too into the details of it. But like, no, Pascal's relationships to people in the film and how people feel about him.
Yeah.
It just feels like you could have wrung a little bit more out of that.
Well, and I just like, I didn't mind Paul Mescal at all. I thought he was totally fine. But I'm just like, Pedro Pascal's a really charismatic guy.
Agreed.
And I think he sort of out charismas Paul Mescal.
I agree. And again, again, it's not Mescal is bad. I mean, again, this is not fair, but Russell Crowe is wildly charismatic.
Yeah.
In the first film, and Mescal is a different flavor.
Yeah.
Which is fine in a different film, but like you say, when he's surrounded by other people that you're a little more drawn to, maybe that's not great.
Just to drive home the unfairness of the comparison, right? Like both movies start with our main character giving this inspirational speech.
Yes.
Maximus, for you're in Elysium and you're already dead. And everybody's laughing, and like, man, I'd follow this guy into the gates of hell. And Lucius gets a similar-ish speech.
Yes.
And it's all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it, no, you know what? I will say this. There is one line where, and I'll just say the line bereft of context, and maybe you'll remember the line, but he says, whether wood or steel,
oh my gosh,
a point is a point. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's funny because we talked about that line. That is so funny that you bring that specific line up. Yeah.
And that scene on rewatch, I'm like, that was an odd choice to deliver it that way.
Right.
It just stuck out to me, and I was like, it's delivered in like a and I was like, oh, maybe it should have been a
Yeah, and also he employs that line on a character that I didn't know I was supposed to hate as much.
Right. It's so funny.
So, like, maybe the problem then is they followed too much of the template of the first film.
Yeah.
Because then it can't land as strongly, or you're just feeling like it's, I don't know. Like, I was pitching, and I'm not saying this is a great idea, it's just a thought experiment, but what if you had a character that wasn't at all like Maximus or a warrior or whatever? What if it's a completely different type of person who's put in this sort of situation? I mean, we've already spoiled it in this little conversation here, but like, he is royalty.
Yeah.
And what would it be like to have someone who's not prepared for this type of situation, who's on the other side of the arena wall now, who has to learn how to survive?
Well, but that gets to what we talked about before, right? They were partly making a sequel. They were partly Force Awakensing it.
Yes, very much so.
So it has to be similar enough, and so that's the dilemma. But I look, it's so funny because we are picking some nits, and they're valid critiques. I want to be clear, but I also like at the end of it, I'm like, I mean, I did enjoy it. I did. When it ended, I was like, oh, it was fun.
I couldn't agree more, because it is a really easy movie to note up. Yeah, and we did when it was over. Me, my brother, and his wife. But we also had a good time with it.
Yeah.
It's just, again, standing next to the first film, you can't help but have notes.
Yeah.
But going to just watch Gladiator 2 to watch a big spectacle movie that's, only really Scott could make a movie like this in this day and age, it's still a good, fun watch.
So we can add this in the pile next to Jaws 2 and Psycho 2 as good enough sequels to movies that probably didn't need to have sequels.
I think that'd be a good Letterboxd category.
Somebody get that started for us.
Yeah.
Very cool. Hey, Brian, we got some listener letters.
Oh, let's hear it.
So hey, here's a note we got from Jeffrey Meisner. This was in reference to our Patreon exclusive reaction to the Superman trailer.
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates, and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Is it curling up on the couch for a cozy, peaceful night in? Therapy can feel a bit like that. Your comfort place where you replenish your energy. With BetterHelp, get matched with a therapist based on your needs, entirely online. It's convenient and suited to your schedule. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Oh, great. That was really fun to do.
That trailer, by the way, has been watched, I think I checked it 11 bajillion times.
Yeah. You know what's funny, too? With my dad out here, he doesn't tend to watch trailers on YouTube. I mean, if he's in a theater, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I mentioned the Superman trailer, and he was like, oh, pull it up.
Wow.
And I was like, that's a good sign.
Huh, that's interesting.
You know, I mean, not that I didn't think the movie was going to do well already, but we watched the trailer, and he loved it. And he even told my brother, we were like, oh, we watched the Superman thing. It looks really good. I was like, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, just on YouTube, this is just only the official DC YouTube channel. It's been viewed 49 million times via that, and that's not including all the other places.
Yeah.
But regardless, Jeff writes, he says, I woke up still excited about the trailer and enjoyed hearing your conversation on my way to work this morning. Being a Superman fan, this trailer would be cause for celebration regardless of where it was filmed. But being it was filmed in my hometown of Cleveland was especially thrilling.
Oh.
Cleveland, by the way, it's the hometown of Siegel and Schuster.
Ah, yeah. Nice.
He says, last summer I went downtown and got to see Superior Avenue dressed up as Metropolis. I treasure the photo of my sons and I in front of the Daily Planet. We had a picnic on Father's Day right next, 100 feet away, enforced by a security guard, to the set where military-style tents and LuthorCorp crates were set up for the scene that appears in the trailer with Mr. Terrific. They were special memories, and seeing a peek of them in their cinematic form was emotional. Even for those trailer snippets of Cleveland that I didn't see during filming, but was familiar with just from life moments like Progressive Field or that wonderful romantic shot of Superman hovering in the air holding Lois in the old arcade building where I bought a bouquet of flowers for my future wife for the first time. Seeing all these moments mixed into a story featuring my favorite superhero, just wow.
That's magical.
It really is. Well, it reminds me of watching, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. And
seeing Chicago.
Yeah, and seeing him zipping around streets that we know really well,
Mm-hmm.
That's super cool. Yeah. And I have to imagine that, they chose that location very deliberately.
Yeah. That's cool too. I mean, seeing the places that Jeffrey recognizes, but also getting to see the front of the Daily Planet, seeing it dressed up as Metropolis. That's amazing. I'm so glad he got to do that.
That's super cool. Yeah. Here's a comment from Charles Landy, and this is in regards to our Gremlins commentary track that we just dropped last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a great observation. He says, I think the real spiritual balance of this movie that makes it such a perfect blend of horror and comedy is the fact that the Gremlins laugh almost all the way through it. You don't see a lot of monster movies where the bad guys are giggling their asses off. If you take that away, there's something else entirely, and so is the movie.
I thought that was so brilliant. That's so true.
We got a bunch of salacious crumbs running around.
Yes.
Makes all the difference.
Wow. How have I never made that sort of comparison in my mind? But it's so true. Yeah. They're mischievous. We're watching them like with little 1940s newspaper boy caps on, singing Christmas carols and giggling as they do everything. You can't help but laugh along with them.
Yeah, and by the way, when we did our commentary track, I think we'd sort of mentioned watching Gremlins 2. I was curious, did you end up watching that?
No, but I do intend to.
Yeah. I watched it that evening actually with my 11-year-old and my daughter.
How did it play for you and for them?
Well, I mean, I've always enjoyed it, right? So again, I want to reiterate, I don't see as much of a tonal disconnect between the first one and the second one as a lot of people do. I think it's maybe a few standard deviations removed from it, but not that much,
Mm-hmm.
That said, I mean, they do have a moment where somebody brings up Lincoln and Phoebe Cates is like, oh, don't mention Lincoln. Here's what happened to me on President's Day, and it's clearly setting up, echoing in the first movie, and it's obviously it's just Joe Dante making fun of his own movie.
Right.
Like it's something you would see in, not another Gremlins movie or whatever, like.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, that's good for them,
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I hope we will get to talk through that one of these days.
Mm-hmm. And your kids enjoyed it?
They did, and yeah, that's the beauty of it. They didn't have 6 years of pent up anticipation. They had 21 hours.
Yeah.
So it's just another Gremlins movie. Although we did, what I did put on for them is there's the cartoon on HBO.
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates, and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Maybe you're settled at home alone or with loved ones, covered in blankets, about to watch your favorite show. It's cozy, it's calm, and you're ready for a perfect night in. Therapy can feel a bit like that. A place for comfort. A time when you replenish your energy and take care of yourself. And hey, you can even do it without leaving that same cozy couch. This season is the perfect time to give therapy a try, right from the comfort of home. With BetterHelp, get matched with a tailored therapist based on your needs and preferences, entirely online. Designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Yes, which I haven't seen, but I was curious. How is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's for kids. It's fine.
Sure.
It's the main character is Sam Wang, right? Who's the grandfather.
Okay.
But he's just a little kid in this.
Okay.
Yeah, and he this is where it like breaks canon because Gizmo, like that's his own name. Like he's like, my name's Gizmo.
Oh,
I'm like, I don't think that's right. And then I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I gives a shit,
right.
But like, I'm like, well, actually,
Right.
But it seems fine. It's you know what I would say? It's tonally kind of like the Back to the Future cartoon or something,
Gotcha.
Which is entirely like, it's sweet, it's it's just something, it's more stories in that universe, and if that's something one likes, I suspect they'll like it,
Totally. Wait, I have a question. Have you read the Back to the Future comics?
Not all. I read one story which shows like how Doc and Marty first met.
Yeah, I had somehow came across these recently, and I read that like Zemeckis and Gale were involved.
Yeah, I think more Gale probably.
Yeah. But that people kind of enjoyed them.
Yeah,
and I was just curious if you had feelings on them.
Yeah, I haven't. I know they've done a bunch of them. I've only read one that I thought was decent.
Mm-hmm.
I remember way back in the day they had like comic books that were tying in with the cartoon show.
I remember that too. Yeah. And there was like Happy Meal toys.
Yeah, man.
That was
I kind of missed that, to be honest.
Yeah.
That cartoon show is, again, I for me, like, I remember watching those movies with the kids when they were little, and then being able to roll right into the cartoon show, and they, it's like, man, that for them that was a fun experience, because it's just like the universe continued on past the movies.
That's nice.
Hey, here's another note we got from Tommy Olson. He emailed us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. And he says, Zachy and Brian, I'm loving hearing everyone's favorite movie memories. I might be wrong about this, but I think I'm going to take credit for getting that started. I think he's right about that. Back in February, I emailed in asking both of you what are some of your favorite movie-going experiences. Either way, it's been so much fun to hear everyone's stories. So the credit really goes to you and all your listeners. You're damn right it does, Tommy. Try to steal credit from us.
I'm going to use that sentence with our lawyers.
Okay, constitutes a contract. I realized, though, that I did not share mine. I have too many to count that I could share, but after listening to a recent episode, Brian talked about rewatching Signs, and it made me realize how influential that movie has been for me. I was 13 years old, about to go into 8th grade when I saw it. At that time, I mostly loved action movies, and here I was watching this movie about a family trying to recover from the loss of their wife/mother, set to the backdrop of an alien invasion. It made me feel things from a movie that I had never felt before. After that first viewing, I craved films that not only entertain, but also make you feel something and challenge the way we view the world. Zachy, you mentioned the scene where Mel Gibson's character finally hits a breaking point and expresses his hatred to God. That moment shook me and has always stayed with me. Anytime I see or even think about that scene, I can't help but feel emotional. At the time, I don't think I really understood the emotional impact, but now as an adult with my own kids and after experiencing my own grief and loss, I can fully relate to what he's been going through in that moment. I remember being amazed, though, as the movie unfolds and we see how everything comes together in such a beautiful way for this family to not only make it through this attack on their home, but also really start to take steps to heal from their loss. This year, I went through one of the most emotionally painful experiences of my life. There were so many moments when I felt hopeless, angry, and struggled to hold on to my own faith in humanity and myself. I feel so grateful that I've been able to pull through those dark times. When you discussed this movie, it reminded me of what a profound impact it had on me at such a young age and continues to have. It's a reminder to me to continue to believe and have faith even when things feel completely hopeless, to look for the ways that God, the universe, or whatever you want to call it, works to bring together things for us. Movies like this have the power to truly be life-changing. I'm so grateful that you both have created a space to be able to celebrate that. Thank you for letting me share that, and I hope my ramblings made sense.
Not ramblings at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. I'm really thankful that you pulled through those moments too. And I'm so glad that this movie could, that's what great movies do, right? They either shine a light on something we didn't know, or they help us see things we do know in a different way and give us greater vocabulary or context for those things. And I'm really appreciate, Tommy, you sharing this story. I'm so happy. Your relationship with this movie and everything.
And that was I believe that discussion was had during our Sixth Sense commentary, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure. But these messages have been truly a highlight of this past year of doing this show.
Mm-hmm.
It's remarkable. I mean, it's not easy to sit down and open up and convey your thoughts into text and send that to anybody. I mean, that's an investment of your own emotion and your own time. And I'm grateful. People have better things to do than spend time sending us messages. So that's a choice that people make. And I will never undervalue that.
So well said. It's one thing I do this all the time. I'll hear something and I'll think something, but I don't then open my laptop and try to, put to words what I'm feeling and put it out there. But I think it's a really incredible thing for someone to do, because not only does it touch us, I mean, a lot of people are listening to this and thinking, me too.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful thing. And so I really admire and love that people like Tommy are doing that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy, and I hope people will keep their memorable movie experiences coming, because I think they mean a lot to me, and I know they mean a lot to the people listening. So definitely keep those messages incoming.
Yep.
Hey, we got some headlines, Brian.
All right, let's hear it.
I don't know if you heard this. Jason Momoa looks like he's headed back to the DC universe.
I did see that right before we hopped on.
Yeah. Now you might remember, Brian. I don't know if you remember this, but he used to play Aquaman.
I am familiar.
He played Aquaman in one very, very successful movie and two very unsuccessful movies.
Two. Wait. I know it must be like Justice League or something. What's
Justice
the other one?
League. Well, the sequel to Aquaman.
Yeah. Well, sure.
That is remarkable. The drop off from Aquaman 1 to Aquaman 2.
It's wild. I mean, a $1 billion film to whatever it wound up to.
$1.50, I think, when all was said and done.
Maybe. I mean, truly, like 100 million, maybe, or something domestic. Who knows? Like,
I am curious. Let's see. So Aquaman 2 made worldwide $439 million.
Okay.
So in the abstract, that's a decent chunk of change. The only problem is it is the sequel to a billion plus grosser.
Yeah.
So it's a problem.
Underperformer. Yeah.
Quite a bit. So that said, I thought he was good as Aquaman, but he's always been a fan of Lobo, the character Lobo.
He's been vocal about that.
He has, and like a year ago or thereabouts, he put, or I guess earlier than a year ago, because a year ago is when Aquaman 2 came out. He put out a video on Instagram following a meeting with James Gunn where he was like, "Woo!" He was all excited, ripping his shirt off.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
And you know what I said at the time? I kid you not, Brian. I'm not making this up. I was like, I'll bet you he's going to play Lobo. Because he had mentioned in the past being a big fan of Lobo, and I was like, well, what else would get him that excited, right?
Wow, I remember that video. That was a long time ago. He's been sitting on this.
Right. I was doing the math. I was like, the options are he's playing Aquaman still. He's not involved at all, or he's playing another character. I'm like, well, he wouldn't react that way to continuing to play Aquaman.
Right. Well,
and he wouldn't react that way if he's no longer involved in DC.
Right.
So then you do a little Poirot action. You eliminate you do detective stuff. That's my point.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we end up. So I'm not going to say I predicted it, but I suspected.
Yeah, you had a good sense.
And so, he's going to show up in the Supergirl movie that's coming out, I guess, 2026.
Okay. So a year after Superman.
Yeah. So assuming the world is not a smoking crater by then, because who the hell knows? So he's going to show up in Supergirl, which is, and I guess Supergirl is going to be set up in the Superman movie, I'm assuming, and then we'll see what happens there. Now, if you've seen the character Lobo, I mean, goddamn, he looks just like him.
Well, I was going to say, on a scale from 1 to where does the character Lobo land?
I would say more the latter than the former.
Okay.
And I'm not a big, I have no strong feelings on the character Lobo. He's always struck me as kind of a DC's attempt to do like a hardcore, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah. It felt, I felt like I was too old for Lobo when that character blew up, which was like in the early 90s. He's been around since the 80s.
Okay.
But yeah, certainly just from an appearances point of view, I think Momoa is a good choice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about his personal life, so please, and if there's something I don't know, don't judge me. But like, he seems like a pretty jovial guy, infectious, happy to be doing what he's doing, so it makes me happy.
Yeah. On a related note, I think Zachary Levi just got a job parking cars at a lot somewhere.
That guy, man, like what happened? Like overnight. I mean, everybody loves Shazam.
Yeah, well, nobody loved the sequel. That's part of the problem.
That's true. But oh boy.
Yeah, I saw Laura Benanti, who co-starred with him, uh, on the stage. Like they were in She Loves Me, and she's like, "F this guy, F you forever." I think is what she said about Zachary Levi.
Wild.
She says, "I never liked him. Everyone was like, he's so great," and I was like, "No, he's not."
Man, it's crazy.
I don't think we should expect a reprise of Shazam anytime soon. Actually, speaking of no reprise anytime soon, the Batman. How about this? The Batman Part 2 or whatever the hell they're calling it. I think by the time it comes out, it'll be Batman Beyond, about an aged Robert Pattinson,
right,
training his replacement. So this has been pushed until 2027, I think.
Yeah, I want to say.
So it's going to be close to 6 years between the first one and the second one.
So yeah, tell me about that. What are your feelings on that? I mean, do you feel like that's okay? I mean, a lot of times we've said with the Star Wars sequel specifically, we were like, they went too fast. You didn't need to go so quickly.
Yeah.
And maybe like a year or more in between might have helped some of the cohesion of that whole series. So, we're fans of time if it makes the product better. But do you also feel like that could maybe make it fade further and further from audiences' memories?
Well, this is the thing, yeah, because we've said this on the show repeatedly. A good movie is good forever. A bad movie is bad forever.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm certainly not going to accuse Matt Reeves of like, it's not like he's sitting around playing PlayStation instead of working on the movie. He needs to get it to wherever it needs to be, right?
And that's James Gunn's thing, by the way, right? I mean, he has said we're not going to go ahead with movies that don't have a completed script.
Right. And
which is not something that every other movie, abides by. I
am fully in support of that. Absolutely. That being said, this is, I would say this is just a cause for concern. I wonder if it will be a situation of out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like timeline old Biff, like slowly getting wiped out in 2015 after he delivers the almanac. Like the almanac delivery is sort of like the new James Gunn DC universe. And it's like, that's all well and good, but like we're killing off people. They're fading from existence. And that could be what we're slowly watching in real time is, yes, this was a very successful movie and people tended to like it, but things are a-changing and maybe this is a remnant that will slowly disappear.
That's my concern, right? Because Andy Muschietti has been developing this DC Universe Batman movie called Brave and the Bold, which at this point is delayed indefinitely. There's no word on that. And just I want to be look, there are more important things in this life, but that big a gap between Batman movies.
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's Zola.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Maybe you're settled at home alone or with loved ones, covered in blankets, about to watch your favorite show. It's cozy, it's calm, and you're ready for a perfect night in. Therapy can feel a bit like that. A place for comfort. A time when you replenish your energy and take care of yourself. And hey, you can even do it without leaving that same cozy couch. This season is the perfect time to give therapy a try, right from the comfort of home. With BetterHelp, Get matched with a tailored therapist based on your needs and preferences, entirely online. Designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
That's sort of new, you know?
I didn't even think about it that way. You're right. Just for, yes. Look, we're on a movie podcast. When we're off the movie podcast, other things matter more than this. But you're absolutely correct. That's a long time for us to go without Batman, damn it. And kind of unusual.
So yeah, I think you and I were texting to some extent. Like I like the Batman. I liked it a lot when I saw it. I have not revisited it since it came out, but even I'm finding it hard to be like, oh, and there's going to be a sequel, 3 years from now. Okay. Like I mean, maybe it'll be amazing, but it feels like the longer you make the audience wait, the more it really needs to measure up.
Yeah. And also, I mean, if Brave and Bold is being designed to fit into this new universe we're going to be living in and hopefully love from DC, do you try to shoehorn this thing into suddenly retrofitting into that? And it feels
I think
awkward?
that's the big question, Brian. Like, is that the goal, to just turn this into turn Matt Reeves's the Batman verse into, retroactively make it part of the DC universe?
Mm-hmm. Because I got to be honest, I mean, I do want to see a Batman that makes sense with David Cornsweat's Superman.
Yeah.
I that sounds really fun to me, to have that big universe.
I could see Pattinson doing that. I mean, why not?
Me too. I just, the tone of that film is just so wildly different than what it feels like they're going for. That's sort of elevated, slightly fantastical, reality that we're seeing in the trailer with like a super dog and stuff. So, but maybe it could work where you have this be, and also there's this take on Batman existing. I don't know. It doesn't seem like what they want to do over there, but maybe that can still happen if the story is worthy enough, they feel.
I look at like Marvel Phase 1 and I'm like, Iron Man 1 and Thor 1 are pretty tonally distinct from each other.
Mm-hmm.
But you put them together in Avengers and you buy it.
I do remember having that curiosity before the Avengers came out. How will they exist together?
Yeah, because they felt like different. They felt very different.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I in the past couple weeks, they did announce they're doing a Clayface movie.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Now this is interesting. Mike Flanagan is writing and directing it.
Mm-hmm.
And Clayface, for those of you who don't know, is a Batman villain. He's either an actor who uses various makeups and whatnot to change his face, or he's just a big gooey. He's also an actor, but just a big pile of goo.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the Flanagan approach is going to be. I will say that the episode of Batman the Animated Series, which featured Clayface, was extremely effective.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
That had Ron Perlman doing the voice, and I being honest, I don't really have any interest in a movie about Clayface. This feels like Kraven the Hunter all over again.
Yeah, I mean, I assume there must be a take. I mean, if this early on and James Gunn's trying to make an impression.
I mean, it's a choice, right? Like he has said, this is not connected to the Reeves films.
Yeah.
So unlike the Penguin, however, it is, connected to the DC universe. So we're getting Batman villains before we have Batman.
That's a good point. And a movie. A movie feels like a statement.
Yeah, right? I mean, I feel like that would be better positioned as a show or something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm sort of like, well, we'll see what happens. I think they've been pretty good about not announcing stuff unless it's ready to announce.
Right.
But it's an odd one. Let's say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, while we're talking about Kraven the Hunter, I mean, my God, that movie has just dive bombed.
Did it leave the top 10 this week? I think.
If it hasn't, it's on its way out the door.
Wow. Yeah.
It's been funny because I saw an interview with Tony Vinciquerra, who's one of the heads at Sony, and he's basically like, look, it's the critics' fault that all these they're Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter both flopped this year.
Right.
And these were not just run of the mill flops; these were like biblical disasters.
Yeah, doesn't that feel so like? Am I so out of touch? No, it's the kids who are wrong.
Right. That was my thought. I'm like, listen, the critics had nothing to do with the fact that no one showed up. Like,
that's
you are not reading the audience.
Yeah, you're right. They didn't show up. And I actually did. I saw that interview also, and I did think, I know I didn't love it. Was I being not too hard on it? But it made me reevaluate what I thought of it. And I was like, no, that was a really, like, it felt like a movie that was being held together by Scotch tape. It was a badly constructed movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is. I don't know whose fault that is, but yeah, no, it was objectively not a well put together movie. So it's kind of weird for him to come out and say that sort of thing.
Yeah. The exact quote, he says, let's just touch on Madam Web for a moment. Madam Web underperformed in the theaters because the press just crucified it. It was not a bad film. Fact check. Yes, it was. And it did great on Netflix. Fact check. Yeah. That doesn't mean anything.
I mean, so did Hot Frosty.
Yeah. That's right. He goes on, for some reason, the press decided that they didn't want us making these films out of Kraven and Madam Web. No, the press just didn't want you making bad movies. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, if I had more time in my life, I would maybe go back and look at Madam Web again, because I've had friends be like, no, it's not good, but I enjoyed it on Netflix as like a goofy, bad film. And I remember not even enjoying it in that way.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but yeah.
He says, do you think the Spider-Man universe strategy needs to be rethought? He says, I do think we need to rethink it just because it's snake bitten. If we put another one out, it's going to get destroyed no matter how good or bad it is.
True.
And this makes me think about, this whole, in a way, I'm glad we are hopefully in the post-universe phase of franchise filmmaking.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. If Sony would collaborate with Marvel or don't, but just put your work into a decent Spider-Man movie every couple of years, people will show up from now until the end of creation.
And we've said this, I think you said this specifically, find a director with a take.
Yep.
With a vision, with a voice, and don't worry too much about sanding any interesting edges off, trying to make something that will be all things to everyone, and try to connect to 10 other pieces that you haven't even done yet that may not even get made because you thought too hard about the one you have in your hand at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, those are the things people respond to.
Yeah. What a concept.
Yeah.
It does, you and I were discussing earlier in the week about how Barbara Broccoli is kind of holding up development of the next Bond movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because MGM is now part of the Amazon apparatus.
Yep.
And so Amazon is viewing this solely in franchise terms, solely in content terms.
Yeah. So great. Let's get a new Bond. Let's make a movie. But how can we exploit this IP? Mm-hmm. Once we make that movie, then we'll have a TV series about Q's assistant, and then we'll right, and then we'll have like an animated series, and we'll have trying to make a whole spider web of things built out of that one thing.
Yeah.
And look, I get it, right? I mean, that's the entertainment world we're living in at the moment. So I think it'd be weird if they weren't thinking that way, frankly. But you can appreciate Barbara Broccoli's concern about, she owns one of the last few, unexploited long-term IPs there are.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, Brian, this is the single family-owned franchise in Hollywood.
Wow. Yeah.
Everything else is corporate-owned.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
obviously I'm on her side. I don't want to see it
100%
watered down to something gross, but
this is the thing. Okay. There have been 25 James Bond movies over the course of the last, 60 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And with few exceptions, the franchise is consistently successful.
Yeah.
So if you're Amazon, you have to look at this and say, look, this is an annuity. We can count every couple of years. We're gonna get an infusion of cash because of what this franchise represents. So you'd think they would be like, the people who have been shepherding this from the start, you do what you need to do and send us the checks.
I mean, obviously that makes sense to me and you, but like, you can also see when that acquisition happened with MGM, they were like, oh, yep. Like a thunderclap happened and they were like, now we own IP and we can do the things that everybody else is getting to do.
I mean, it's so irksome. I mean, in addition to Bond and all the other stuff, RoboCop was included in that purchase, right? And I'm like, just the irony of the fact that literal goddamn OCP owns RoboCop now.
That's funny.
Like, it's so dystopian where we're at right now.
It is a lot of cultural stuff. It really is.
Yeah, when something works, you don't pee on it to make it better.
Yeah.
And what has worked better than James Bond in terms, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. For literal decade after decade, they have been consistently successful. This is a franchise that withstands time, politics, you name it.
Absolutely.
And hey, no, let's have Amazon content executive number 7 start sticking their finger in the pie.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like you have an exquisite glass of wine and someone's like, yeah, but if we add water to it, you'll have more wine.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah. Wow. So, hey, well, those are continuing stories. I suspect there'll be more news on the Bond front at some point. It is remarkable that it has been as long as it has since the last one. And
I'm so curious what the take is going to be.
Yeah, that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
Here's a story. I thought this was kind of interesting. The smear campaign that was endured by Blake Lively last fall, just a few months ago, upon the release of the movie It Ends With Us. Mm-hmm. And I bring this up I mean, it has been kind of an explosive story over the last week, but I remember last fall being in my classes, and usually when I start out my class, especially in media class, I'm like, oh, what's going on? What's in the news? Oh, did you hear what Blake Lively did? And this is from my students. She was acting like this, and I don't have any investment in either the movie It Ends With Us or the comings and goings of Blake Lively, so I'm just a complete bystander in this. Mm-hmm. But this sense of negativity towards her was palpable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And people were really like microanalyzing every utterance from her, Yep. And what we find out, and this is via a story that was in the New York Times last week, that social media generated backlash was the furthest thing from organic. It was in fact engineered via Justin Baldoni, who produced and directed the film and co-starred with her, as a way of positioning himself as the hero and her as the heel. Mm-hmm. Which is just, I mean, if you read the story, you're like, this is some evil shit.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing you can do that if you have the means. Hire someone to generate all this. I mean, I don't look, I'm not in reading up on all this, so I don't really know the details of it. Yeah. I've just sort of observed it from afar, but I have watched, the people's opinions shift back and forth. And I've seen, now that this has come to light, that a lot of the backlash against Blake Lively may have been manufactured. I've seen a lot of people, being reflective on social media, being like, look, mistakes were made. Maybe I shouldn't have jumped to the conclusions that I did. And maybe this is a lesson. And I think it is. And that's me saying that when I still don't even know the facts. I don't really know what's going on here, but It's amazing that can happen. And maybe it's a lesson to everybody to like not jump on bandwagons and come down on people so harshly when we have no idea.
Yeah. I've said this before, you don't have to express your opinion about everything. On the internet. You can keep some of that shit to yourself.
Yeah.
And then leave yourself room to be like, oh, I guess I was wrong about that. and without having to flagellate yourself publicly. You know what I mean?
Right.
So essentially, Blake Lively has sued Justin Baldoni, and in the course of discovery, this is the stuff that's come out, and this is in the Times. She's suing Baldoni and his partner Jamie Heath. During shooting, Blake Lively had complained that the men had repeatedly violated physical boundaries and made sexual and other inappropriate comments to her. Their studio, Wayfarer, agreed to provide a full-time intimacy coordinator, bring in an outside producer, and put other safeguards on set. In a side letter to Ms. Lively's contract signed by Mr. Heath, the studio also agreed not to retaliate against the actress. But by August, the two men, who had positioned themselves as feminist allies in the Me Too era, expressed fears that her allegations would become public and taint them, according to a legal complaint. It claims that their PR effort had an explicit goal to harm Ms. Lively's reputation instead.
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates, and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's Zola.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Is it curling up on the couch for a cozy, peaceful night in? Therapy can feel a bit like that. Your comfort place where you replenish your energy. With BetterHelp, get matched with a therapist based on your needs, entirely online. It's convenient and suited to your schedule. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
So this is the stuff that the New York Times was able to look at. It says the documents show an additional playbook for waging a largely undetectable smear campaign in the digital era. While the film about domestic violence was a box office hit, making nearly $350 million worldwide, online criticism of the actress skyrocketed. Quote, "He wants to feel like she can be buried," a publicist working with the studio and Mr. Baldoni wrote in an August 2nd message to the crisis management expert, Melissa Nathan. "You know, we can bury anyone," Miss Nathan wrote. And I mean, this is super villain. This is Mr. Burns level shit.
Yeah.
In the following weeks, Ms. Nathan, whose clients have included Johnny Depp and the rappers Drake and Travis Scott, went hard at the press, pushing to prevent stories about Mr. Baldoni's behavior and reinforce negative ones about Ms. Lively. The text messages show Jed Wallace, a self-described hired gun, led a digital strategy that included boosting social media posts that could help their cause. An attorney for Wayfarer said in a statement to the Times that the studio, its executives and public relations representatives, quote, did nothing proactive nor retaliated against Ms. Lively and accused the actress of, quote, another desperate attempt to fix her negative reputation. And it goes on. You can read more. But what strikes me, first of all, this is just like shitty all the way around, right? Mm-hmm. This guy who positioned himself as, I'm an ally and all this. It's always the most performative stuff that ends up being just horse shit, right? Mm-hmm. But the other thought I had after reading all of this, I was like, thank God I'm not famous.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, who needs all that? Maybe you get comped to table every once in a while. But other than that, it's all downhill.
I mean, yeah. I feel like this is a little different, but I've been seeing so many of these misleading headlines, and they're not, dire sorts of things, but just recently with Chevy Chase, right? He was on some, or Jason Reitman was on a podcast.
That's right. Yep.
Saying that he screened the movie he made Saturday Night for Chevy Chase. Then Chevy Chase afterwards said something about, like, you should be embarrassed.
Yeah. And my sense from the context is he was saying it in kind of a joking way.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
That's what Chevy Chase does. And I'm not saying he's a nice guy. It's on record. He's not a very nice guy.
Let's stipulate that. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's his humor.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can totally imagine you make something and show it to Chevy Chase and him being like, you should be embarrassed and walk into traffic and then walk away. And that's like, it's a joke.
Yeah.
Right.
And
But
that's you got your Chevy Chase story.
Exactly. And all the headlines are trying to make it out like, ooh.
It's a lot of it's like my cousin Vinny, I shot the clerk, and then repeated
100%. Yes. That's very good. So yeah, it's just I don't know. What a time. What a time we're in. And that's a minor example, but when you have these like focused smear campaigns and the way that they can manipulate what people are reading, and we know that people, and I try not to be this way, but I'm sure I fall for it too. But we get these first impressions with these stories, and then we form our opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, man, it's something we're gonna have to learn how to rise above it a little bit and be a little more discerning. And
it really, I look at this whole Blake Lively thing, and the latest thing is that Justin Baldoni's people are like, well, we're going to be suing her, and it's going to knock your socks off what we have. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we're just bouncing back and forth like ping pong balls.
Yeah, I know.
Like a week from now, everybody's going to be like, can you believe what Blake Lively did? We'll just be doing this.
I know.
For the rest of time,
Yeah.
But certainly, just at a glance, the New York Times' coverage seems to be quite exhaustive, and it is sadistic and sinister.
Yeah.
And that's, again, man, there are so many blessings to just flying under the radar and just living your life, and anonymity is its own reward, just because who needs all this crap? My God,
seriously.
I do not understand and I guess it's a good thing. I guess I can't understand the idea of like, it is my job to spread shit about people who do not deserve it.
Right. Except knowingly.
Yeah.
Going out there and lying to take someone down for payment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. But I mean, look, I know that society as a whole, I'll include myself in this, like, has the memory span of a goldfish. So I doubt we'll take anything from this, but hopefully, at least in this moment, it can open our eyes to the fact that this sort of thing exists. And like I said, maybe we'll have a little more discernment when we see headlines like this and think, okay, interesting.
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates, and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's Zola.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Is it curling up on the couch for a cozy, peaceful night in? Therapy can feel a bit like that. Your comfort place where you replenish your energy. With BetterHelp, get matched with a therapist based on your needs, entirely online. It's convenient and suited to your schedule. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com to learn more and save 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
Let's see what the other side has to say or can present.
Yeah.
Before we come down on people like that.
Well, speaking of discernment, we got some new releases in theaters right now, Brian.
Yeah.
Some big old franchise movies battling it out, actually, for the top spot. I thought this was interesting. Coming out of the post-Christmas weekend, we see both Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa the Lion King were in pitched battle for the top spot. Now, I find this interesting because it feels like people had written off Mufasa as a flop like 8 weeks ago.
Oh, interesting. I think even when it came out, I mean, it was behind Sonic.
Yeah.
In its debut. I don't know where it wound up, to be honest. But so then immediately that was the story.
That became,
I think it's caught up a bit.
Well, So I watched Mufasa last night, and I can't speak to your experience, but the theater was pretty well packed.
Same. I saw it last night, and it was very full.
Yeah, so that's so a week and a half into the run. That's very telling.
Mm-hmm.
But we have seen both. We've seen Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about first?
I think Sonic may be more fun to talk about, but I also feel like I might have more to say about Mufasa.
Okay, well, I'll say this about Sonic. I enjoyed it, maybe slightly less than the previous two, but I still enjoyed it. These are fun movies. They're good choices for the family. Let's move on.
That's about where I landed. I went to a screening and there was a lot of families and kids there. Same. I guess same. I will say this. There was a point halfway through where I was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was holding my attention, but I wasn't clinging to any of it. It just felt like a lot of stuff happening fast, which sounds on brand for Sonic.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel a lot necessarily for it, but I also can't say I had a bad time either. The stuff with Shadow, played by Keanu Reeves, where he has this backstory where he connects with this little girl in a laboratory. Really love that. That's very much my wavelength. And I would say that's the most I felt for the entirety of the film, to be honest. But I did enjoy that. And my friend and I, who were about the same age, we walked out and we were like, this just maybe it's not directed at us. It was enough where I walked out and was like, well, that was fun on its own terms.
Yeah.
But when I walked out, man, the kids were loving it.
This is the thing. This is really something special for kids. That's what I've realized.
When there's that mid-credits sequence, I turned around and I saw kids on their feet.
Yeah.
With their hands on the seat in front of them, literally bouncing, and it made me so happy.
That's really, I honestly, my favorite part. Well, let me say this: I find Sonic, the character in the films, I find him very charming. I think he's played very well by Ben Schwartz, and I like how innocent they make him.
Yes.
Like, he's not a cynical asshole, No,
he's sort of childlike.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that the message of this movie is like, make good choices.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. He's not sarcastic. You could see him being a sarcastic character.
Right.
But, I like that too. That was the whole, make good choices.
And so in that vein, I've loved James Marsden in all of these. And I'm always like, give me more of the dad, which I think just speaks to how I'm getting older. Like, what's Sonic's dad up to? That's me.
I also had a thought. I love Jim Carrey. It's fun to see him clearly having fun. That makes me happy, seeing him having fun. And he's playing him, Robotnik and Robotnik's father. So it's that sort of dual thing. They do a dance number together, which is
very funny.
It's cute. And I just had this thought too, where I was like, okay, so for me, this is Jim Carrey, and I'm like, I love that guy. And I was wondering what it's like for the younger generation. If that's almost like, how do they view him? Like, is this like when I went and saw movies as a kid and Rodney Dangerfield was in it? And my dad was like, oh yeah, he's Rodney Dangerfield. He's funny.
Or are you watching Jerry Lewis movies as a kid?
Kind of, yeah. And I have my own relationship then with Rodney Dangerfield, which is, I like him in Ladybugs or something like that, but I don't. I didn't connect with him.
Son.
Yeah, exactly. I just was kind of curious what that was like for kids.
I feel like Jim Carrey is sort of timeless, right? I mean, I don't like. I know my kids love him, and they haven't seen a ton of his movies.
Yeah, I know he's gotten a little woo-woo these days, but by the way, I kind of admire. I mean, when I say woo-woo, what I mean is he seems very thoughtful about his place in the world and the world at large, and he doesn't. I don't know that he has anything particularly profound to say about it. I mean, I'm literally saying I don't know what he's saying, but I love that he's thinking about it.
Sure.
And he just seems like he's just trying to be a good dude. And he was the biggest star in the world at one point, and now he just seems like a thoughtful person. And I think that's nice. And it seems generally, not that this should matter based on our last conversation, but internet thinking on him is like, we love Jim Carrey. He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
I think more people would listen to his thoughts if he talked through his butt cheeks.
Well, that's how he got my attention.
Yeah. Or as Fire Marshal Bill, you know?
Yeah.
You ever thought about your place? You know, doing his
Yes.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I think if you have liked the previous two, you will probably like this one. Me personally, I did not like it as much as the previous two, but I'm still on board. I will say, I don't know how long Jim Carrey intends to keep making these movies. I wonder if they can do it without him. Like, it would leave such a big hole.
It seems he adds a necessary energy to it all, but it seems like also it's giving him the platform that maybe he's not getting as often at his age.
Oh, sure.
Be as silly and play characters and do funny dances. So I'm happy it's offering him that. Maybe he'll keep doing that. It's funny you say that. Yeah, I kind of agree. This one felt more like stuff happening quickly than the previous two. But I can't say I had a bad time either.
Right.
I was going to say something that I already lost, and I don't know that it matters. So, I was going to say, I did read later, and this says a lot about me, and it says a lot about this movie. I went on Reddit just curious about what people were saying, and a lot of people pointed out that this is based on a specific game, and it really, really meant a lot to them to see this Shadow character. And they were like, as they were watching the film, they were thinking, will they play this specific song? Because apparently they do that in the game, and it would blow their minds if the movie ended with that specific song. And I guess they played it. I don't know. I don't know what that song is. And everybody is rejoicing.
We
so
sound
if
like
that,
a couple of grandpas here, don't we?
I know. If what I said makes any sense to you, you're going to love this.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Yeah.
So that's you little leaguers. That's what we thought about Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Dude, it finally happened, Zachy, to us. Oh, no.
So sad.
Yeah.
But hey, Mufasa the Lion King, that's also in theaters. And again, just to reiterate, written off as a flop, but seems to be doing okay thus far. And I suspect it'll continue to play. I'm just curious, actually. I'm looking at Box Office Mojo right now. It's made $327 million worldwide up to this point.
Wow.
That movie's going to be fine. So
it just came out. Yeah.
So people need to relax. So this is a sequel to the 2019 quote unquote live action remake of The Lion King, which I don't know if I discussed it with you, but or I don't know if I remember discussing it with you. I don't remember if you had seen it, but I was not a big fan of that movie.
I did not see it. I love the original, the animated movie. I mean, that was a real sweet spot for me and my age in Disney films. You know, their renaissance back then. Those films are near and dear to me, especially Lion King, the songs, you know. But I couldn't bring myself to watch the quote unquote live action one because it just, I didn't know what I would get out of it. And there was nothing visually appealing about it that made me feel like I had to see it. I feel like whatever I saw in the trailer, it was going to be that for 90 minutes. And so I never wound up seeing it.
Yeah. I would offer you didn't miss much.
Yeah.
But that movie was a massive hit.
Yeah. $1 billion.
Yeah. So, you know, and you can see why, right? I mean, it's like, you know, parents know exactly what they're getting.
Yeah.
You know, and they get to relive that experience with their kids. So anyway, so the sequel / prequel is directed by Barry Jenkins. He of Moonlight and Beale Street Could Talk. I remember when this was announced a couple of years ago, I was like, well, that's at least interesting to me. Number one, the idea of Barry Jenkins doing it, and then, well, Mufasa's backstory. That's kind of like there's potential there for something.
Can I say I've seen this trailer a lot in theaters with groups of people, and everyone's like, "Ugh, why? Why do they keep doing this?" And I was the lone person saying, "At least it's not a remake. Like this is a new story in the Lion King universe, and I do respect that."
Yeah, I agree.
So that's what I went in with.
So,
do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake. From choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates and invites, Every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. What's your perfect night? Maybe you're settled at home alone or with loved ones, covered in blankets, about to watch your favorite show. It's cozy, it's calm, and you're ready for a perfect night in. Therapy can feel a bit like that, a place for comfort, a time when you replenish your energy and take care of yourself. And hey, you can even do it without leaving that same cozy couch. This season is the perfect time to give therapy a try, right from the comfort of home. With BetterHelp, get matched with a tailored therapist based on your needs and preferences entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com.
My thoughts on this movie are that I was mostly engaged in terms of I think the animation is better than in the 2019 movie.
Mm-hmm.
The lines are more expressive. I think the voice performances are pretty good. Unfortunately, I felt like it was okay. That's kind of where I'm at. Like I don't think it really added anything to the canon or whatever. I did have a ton of questions about some of the storytelling choices they made.
I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah. But I was just like, you try to meet the movie where it is, and you're like, well, I don't know, it's okay. I didn't see a lot of Barry Jenkins in it,
I was gonna say, I mean, anyone could have directed what I saw.
That's it feels like Disney kind of roped him in and put his name on it to kind of give it the veneer of sophistication. And my understanding from him is it wasn't like a great experience making this movie. But then again, maybe I'm taking his comments out of context too. But I have so many questions. Like I will say, on the good side, I thought Aaron Pierre was great as the voice of Mufasa.
I like him.
Mads Mikkelsen,
just as an actor. Yeah. So
I thought he was good as the villain. Again, I guess the biggest problem to me is it feels very inconsequential.
Yeah. So, well, let me just give my general feeling. I would say is I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. And I agree. I was texting someone last night and I just put bland.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, you're saying, the performances, some of them were good. Some of them, there's one moment, and I don't remember, it was a female character and she's trying to usher people to join, in something. I don't even remember who it was. But I remember thinking, like, I am literally, that performance, what I heard, I was literally picturing a woman in a recording booth with sides in front of her.
Sure.
Speaking.
Yeah.
I was like, no, you're running. Sound like you're running, or like there was no urgency. And I was a little disappointed, I got to say, with a lot of the vocal work in this. And yeah, this movie was I was disappointed. I got to say, I don't think it's bad. It's got the right beats, but I just expected so much more from these beats.
See, I went in expecting not much at all. So I left at like a net neutral.
Okay. Yeah.
At one point, I will say I do find it somewhat amusing that this year has been about animated movies, looking at the backstory of how sworn enemies started out as friends and then, became enemies.
That's a really difficult needle to thread, and I don't know that this one quite found that. But
so I'm talking about Transformers 1 as the comparison, right?
Which I liked better, even though it was I think we agreed it was a swift change of heart with that character. I still kind of enjoyed it.
This felt even swifter. Am I wrong?
Oh my gosh. I didn't buy this one at all. It felt like in the last 30 minutes, they're like, holy crap, this has to line up with The Lion King. And so they really, really quickly did some, fancy footwork to try to make it all line up.
Yeah. So okay. So this is okay. So then we kind of landed at the same place here because So actually, I have two problems. Number one, I was talking before about how Gladiator 2, how they made Lucius Maximus's son, and that doesn't make any sense.
Uh-huh.
Well, this one makes Mufasa and Scar not brothers. And
yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
Adopted brothers. I mean,
yeah, because to me, I don't know. You lose something kind of essential there, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and the brother stuff is the things that I may have liked most. I mean, when they were young cubs and excited to be brothers with one another, I really enjoyed that sort of thing, and I wish that the potency of that relationship when they were kids had carried through all the way throughout.
Yeah.
Oh, something I wanted to say. I'm sorry, what I was trying to build off of what you said earlier with the vocal performances, and this is not an original thought. I think every review says this, but by the nature of having these characters look like actual animals, you lose so much expressiveness in their faces.
And can I tell you, this is still better than the one from 5 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. Because that was my big issue. I mean, I'm not saying this is a quantum leap ahead, but they managed a few eccentricities in terms of the facial animation that the previous one even didn't.
I mean, and that's just it. I mean, there's some big emotional turns in this movie. I have two problems. I think directing, script, whatever you want to lay blame to, this thing is in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this movie takes no breaths.
Mm-hmm.
So when something big happens, like a parent dies or whatever, it's just like, oh no, my dad's dead. Hurry, let's go over here now. Oh, we're going to find the promised land. La, 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 la. You know, like there's no beat. You know, like I remember Simba sitting there in the dust when his dad had just died. You know, like.
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com.
You've got to make these moments matter. And I feel like this movie felt like they didn't either trust the audience or they were trying to get it under 2 hours, but they didn't let any emotional moments.
Well, and here's an idea: if just cut out the framing device.
Dude, this movie, it doesn't work at all. The framing device with Timon and Pumbaa, it was annoying me. Actually, the Simba's daughter, who I don't remember her name, but she's being told a story by Rafiki. Yeah. She's being told this movie as a tale by Rafiki. Yeah. And it keeps interrupting the movie, going back to the storytelling conceit and Timon and Pumbaa making jokes. And at one point, Simba's daughter acts annoyed at them interrupting. And I was like, dude, tell me about it. Like, it was very irritating.
Yeah, I didn't understand that because I'm like, I think people know who Mufasa is. Like, if you just tell this story as a straight up prequel, like your audience will be with you. I don't think we're going to be like, oh, where's Simba? You know?
No, it was. I was thinking, I'm in it. I'm curious what's going to happen next. You're grinding this movie to a halt doing this. Yeah. And I didn't find them funny once.
Yeah.
Which was, so then it makes it irritating.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Do we want to get into spoilers?
Yeah, I'll just say one more thing that's non-spoilery. And tell me if you clocked this or if you maybe even felt this. Along with the whole way that this movie felt like it just kept moving forward and never had the patience to sit in a moment or with an emotion that was happening, I really didn't love the camera work in this movie.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I know it's I mean, obviously it's animated, but I want to say I don't know if it's motion capture or how they do it with the actors or whatever. And then they move the camera around 360 degrees, however they wish, in this artificial environment. I think I read an article where they were talking about that. Jenkins had a camera and he could walk around and in real time. I mean, James Cameron did this in Avatar, but he could see the environment and pan up or tilt up and pan left and right. And after a while, I started noticing that the camera was just swooping and swooping and swooping. And I was like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And it started taking away. Like there is just sort of a natural film language, I think, and there's power in cuts. And I mean, this is coming from someone who all the time is talking about how much I love Spielberg and Zemeckis' camera work, where instead of cutting, he'll tilt down and he'll reveal something. And so obviously I love that, but I love it when it's intentional. It's narrative. This, I felt like they just kept moving and swooping and then it wasn't really concentrating on characters' faces and cutting when maybe a hard cut might make us go, ooh, feel a little bit of an impact or something. And then once it got in my mind, I was noticing it for the rest of the movie, and it was starting to make the whole thing feel sort of dreamlike and taking away from what I thought could have been a little bit more impact with a different kind of direct.
I think that's a valid critique.
So anyway, I just thought it was worth mentioning. I was wondering if you noticed that.
It's not something that jumped out at me only because I think I was just in this space where I'm like, this is all. It's all animated anyway. Like it's so. It just felt like a fantasy, world anyway. And I hate that they're like, oh, live action. I'm like, it's not live action. Just as a matter of accurate describing, it's not in any way live action.
Yeah,
and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But let's call it what it is.
I completely agree. Although, I mean, I'm speaking out of the other side of my mouth. I do like that if they're going to make this at all, and let's be real, of course they were going to make this no matter what. I do like that they tried something different.
Yeah.
They tried to tell a different tale from the Lion King universe instead of just retelling something we've already seen. So I do admire that swing. Oh, and real quick, before we get into spoilers, I mean, should we comment on the songs real quick? Before we get into story
the
beats?
ones that are entirely unmemorable?
Yes, those.
Oh, okay.
Look, I like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I think he's done some good work in the Disney universe. I mean, with the Mary Poppins film and Moana.
Did he do the songs for these?
I believe he did in collaboration with someone. Actually, it's quite noticeable. There's one song that I don't recall what it was, but it was very much like straight out of Hamilton.
Okay.
Like I could hear it. I mean, certainly his the way he uses syllables and his cadence and all that stuff. But I gotta admit, man, I mean, the first song I thought was fine and kind of had a hook to it, which I appreciated. But the villain song, the Bye Bye, I was like, you can't be serious. Like, you cannot be serious. This is the song. This is the big villain song. And it's him going like, I don't like you so much, so I'm going to say bye bye. And I was like, that's no. Oh man, Zachy. Ugh. That was rough.
Hey, let's get into some spoilers.
Spoilers.
So, of course, the big villains here. We have these albino lions.
Yes.
Right, and I'm just like, man, these brown lions, they got things going. They got it going on, and then the whites show up, Ryan. Leave it to the whites. Yep. Here's my real thought. I was thinking about a show which you may be familiar with called Kimba the White Lion.
I am familiar with this. This is a fascinating thing, by the way. So if you want to expand on that.
Yeah. So this is a show. It's a Japanese animated show, which I watched. I watched it as a kid growing up in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I loved it. Kimba the White Lion. His father, Caesar, his uncle, Scar. I'm pretty sure his name is Scar. And when the Lion King came out, I was like, that's Kimba the White Lion. It's like, no, this is Simba. I'm like, what? And they straight up ripped off Kimba the White Lion. They're like, no, we hadn't heard of it. I'm like, bullshit.
Yeah, you can go online, you can Google this, and you can see the comparison.
There is no chance in this universe that the Disney people did not know about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So 100% it is a ripoff of Kimbo the White Lion. So I kind of love that Disney's like, yeah, not only do we rip that shit off, look, the White Lions, they're the villains.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? That's basically,
That's hilarious. Yeah.
So the whole setup with the villains, I was like, well, what's their deal? Right. I was waiting for something, a little more, but the thought I had is the main character, voiced by Mads Mikkelsen, who I think does a really good job. I think he's very good in this.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
He wants revenge for his son being killed by Mufasa. And I'm like, well, obviously you have like Taka / Scar become his like surrogate son. Do you make that the story,
Right.
Oh, and here's the other thing. The whole movie's like, who's Taka? I'm like, I don't know. Is it Scar maybe?
Yeah.
Like they're setting it up like it's some big thing. I'm like, he's obviously Scar.
That's funny because I didn't even realize that because I knew it was Scar from the start. I didn't even pick up on that.
Right. But of course, we're not going to call him Scar. We're not going to, no, we're never going to, okay, hold on. I'll get to this in a second. There is a tendency in this movie to be like, oh, this is the thing that we call this thing, but we're never going to call it that again.
Right.
Because the whole movie, they're looking for Malele.
Yes.
Malele, the pride, what is it? It means
Pride Rock is basically that location.
Well, the Pride Lands. We see the origin of Pride Rock, by the way.
Yes.
But Malele, where's Malele? We got to find Malele. Malele. That's what
it's on everyone's lips. Everyone's heard the story of Malele. Yeah.
And then as soon as Mufasa becomes king, he's like, as my first act as king, we will never refer to this land as Malele again, under penalty of torture.
Right.
That's the other thing, by the way. Mufasa's like, no more kings. But Mufasa, you have to be the king. Okay, then I will be the king.
Right. That's what I'm saying. All these turns and even like having Kuros's son die. Like it's Scar. I'm just gonna call him Scar. Is basically feeling like, my mom's closer to I was gonna say Simba, Mufasa, and but we don't sit in any of that stuff. Like if we sat in that and we felt that, we would understand some of these motivations more instead of them feeling just like beats we have to hit to get through this film.
Yeah, I see. There's stuff in it that I liked, so Mufasa is separated from his parents and he's found by Taka's parents, and he's adopted into the Pride, but now he has to stay with the women, and so with the women he learns like how to hunt and all this stuff, right? So obviously, what kind of woke shit is this, Brian?
That's funny.
But I thought that was actually really cool, where his adopted mother's like, what do you sense? And he's like, the antlers are like this, and that stuff was. I'm like, that's what made Mufasa a good king.
That was great. That was great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That's because he learned empathy at a very young age. All this stuff I track with that. But again, the fundamental problem is that the movie is presenting as this aspirational moment where he becomes the king, but the message of the movie is also we shouldn't have kings, and it's trying to square that. Okay, the thing with obviously it all comes down to the split between Taka / Scar and Mufasa. And this is where the movie lost me and honestly didn't get me back.
Do you know the number one thing that surprises engaged couples? Take a guess. The sheer amount of decisions they have to make while planning a wedding. Indoors or outdoors? How many guests? Are kids invited? Controversial. Which cake flavor? Seriously, how do you even begin to figure out what's right for you? That's where Zola comes in. Zola has everything you need to make every wedding decision a piece of cake, from choosing your dream wedding venue and vendors to deciding how to best spend your budget. With tons of customizable wedding websites, save the dates and invites, every detail will feel like you. Zola will even help you choose the gifts, experiences, and cash funds you really want. The next thing you know, you've planned your whole wedding all in one place. From getting engaged to getting married, Zola has everything you need to plan your wedding in one place. Start planning at Zola.com. That's ZOLA.com.
Because to me, it essentially comes down to, oh, my girl is into him, and he's not saying no, so F that guy.
Right.
And
Even though he's been his wingman
the whole time.
Yes.
The whole time. And I'm like, you could have got to the same place without it being so, like, because essentially he's like, well, screw him. And then he goes and he finds the white lions. He's like, hey, here's where they are. And I'm like, why don't you have him get separated from them? Taka, he gets separated from his people, and the white lions find him.
Yes.
And they're like, why are you looking for them? Like, what about all that? Like, you're a king. What, and put, like, have it planted that way.
100%.
Right. And then the other thought I had is, why not have Taka, like, he's kind of like secretly rooting for them and maybe even kind of helping them on the Lola, but he's not like at the end, he's like, by the way, Mufasa, I'm the villain. Like, because it makes Mufasa look like a stupid idiot then. To be like, you betrayed me, but I will, as punishment, I will never call you by your name ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's not like a guy I want, like, standing behind me. Like,
think about it. Like he's kind of like, he's helping the bad guys on the Lolo, but he's also like, when it, he's like, look, I'll bring you to you just follow me. Right. And then he's just like, hey, let's see how this shakes out. And then it turns out it doesn't go his way. He's like, all right, I'll just bide my time. Because otherwise, to me, what is the most tragic moment of the animated film makes Mufasa look stupid when Scar allows him to die.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I loved that the first time Taka meets Mufasa, it's the exact opposite. He's claws.
Yes.
And he saves his life.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, that's it. You did it. And then they did it again later in the movie.
Oh, you mean because it would have been enough to be a parallel to the original
exactly.
film?
I was like, you don't need to do it multiple times, because then it's like, oh, is this the time he betrays him? Oh no, it's not. It's like Crispin Glover in a Hot Tub Time Machine.
Right.
You're like, is this the time he loses his hand? Oh no, it's not. I'm like, no, you did it the one time at the beginning. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's one of these things where you're locked in to, well, we have to end up here. I will never call you by your name. Okay, call me Scar. Like, well, that doesn't even make sense.
Right.
Yeah. It's like at the end of Men in Tights when when Patrick Stewart's like, from now on all toilets will be called John. This is
it's very much like
brother,
that. Yes.
It feels very arbitrary, and I think the problem I have is, again, if Scar has revealed himself as having betrayed Mufasa once, what possible reason does Mufasa have to ever trust him again?
I totally agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, you reminded me of something that's my two main problems. Like, I just feel like all the beats make sense as sort of rough ideas on paper. But at the beginning, when Mufasa is separated from his family, and then he's immediately found by Scar, he's just like, oh, hey, buddy, like, let's be brothers. And I'm like, aren't you going to cry for a second? Like, your parents are gone. See, like, there's no wistfulness in like, hey, well, I know, and hopefully you find him someday, but for now, maybe I could be like a brother to you. Oh, well, that would be nice. And then, right? It feels more. So here's the thought I had when it came to the lack of sitting with any of those moments. Because even when Taka's parents die. Yes. I'm like, is this like a Disney thing? Like, we don't want to traumatize kids. It's very possible, but sorry, I'll let you finish. But no. Yeah. Here's why that's bullshit. Because there's like several generations of trauma from watching Mufasa die. And it's freaking powerful for that reason. Right. So you sometimes, I mean, you don't have to traumatize kids, but you have to let those emotional moments be real. And let kids experience them, because it can be meaningful. That's my only point. Sorry, go ahead. No. I completely agree. And and then there was a moment where the lions are fighting at the end, and I actually looked at the little kid next to me, and I was wondering if it was intense for her, because I was like, oh, this is kind of violent. Yeah, watching these. I mean, these are like videos I don't like even looking at on YouTube, where animals are just like slashing at each other. So it's in there.
Yeah.
You know? But yes, it's right. When Taka, I'll call him Taka, when he loses his parents, they're basically like, well, off to Malele.
Yep.
I was like, aren't you going to be sad for a minute? or even have a moment where it's like, I didn't even, like, you spent more time with my mom than I did.
Yeah.
And then that could even begin like the seed of why he starts to be like, he could potentially turn against Mufasa down the line. It's like, you know what? They cared for you more anyway. And then you're not even giving me the respect with this girl I like. And, these people are more family to me than my family even was, including you, it was there. You could have done that.
Yeah. I think that's the heel turn. You could have gotten there very organically within the story. The abruptness of it is, well, okay. You know what? As I'm talking to you, here's another thought I have. I think another problem is you couldn't make his resentment too justified, because Mufasa is like a sanctified character. So like point. Scar has to be wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, if he is like, well, I know he's interested in her, but I love her too, even though there's maybe nothing possibly in the granular part of it wrong. How would that make us feel about Mufasa?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. That's tricky.
It's tricky, but hey, that's the job. That's what you guys took on.
That's the job.
Yeah. So, I think I will say, having watched it, I took my daughter, she liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's like kids will like it. It's not a movie that stayed with me, and that I don't need to see further, like, excavations of the Lion King universe. I think you've done it,
I mean, if this is what we're going to get, I'm not interested. I'm going to be honest.
I was thinking, I was like, as I was watching, I was like, would this have worked better for me in traditional animation? And I kept thinking, yeah, I would have preferred that.
Zachy, I thought the same thing. And remember when the stampede happens in the original, and that push in on Simba's like horrified face? I mean, that I can see it in my mind right now. I haven't watched that movie in like 15 years.
Yeah.
I really do feel like that's a huge ding on this, executing this movie this way, where you cannot see those expressions on your characters' faces.
That's right.
So yeah, I went in, I'll not say with high hopes, but I did go in thinking like, oh, I'm ready to enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I did walk out disappointed, and I'm disappointed about that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Kind of a swing and a miss.
Yeah, and I did think it's interesting. I was curious, because we're talking about Sonic 3 and Mufasa, and Sonic 3, for what it's worth, on Rotten Tomatoes, Sonic has 88% and Mufasa is in the 50s. So,
okay. Yeah. It's not terribly surprising.
Yeah, and I guess I don't want to make it sound like that should be the end all be all of a take on a film, but it is interesting. I would say that Sonic 3, despite us being like, well, it wasn't all for us and whatever, in what it set out to do, it accomplished it. And in what this movie set out to do, I don't know that it rose to its potential.
Here's what I'll say in terms of sort of my most positive high level. I don't think it really adds anything to The Lion King, but it doesn't really take anything away from it either.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So it's like, I say this even with regards to the 94 movie. Like, you could watch the 94 movie and watch this and be like, oh, okay, well, here's some backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, in that sense, it's I guess relatively harmless.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, like, you put so many resources into making these movies, like, maybe make something that's meant to stay with you a little more,
Yeah.
You don't have to keep excavating your old IP, like do something like The Lion King.
Yeah,
do Kimba the White Lion.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Too bad.
All right. Well, there we go. That's us on Mufasa the Lion King. But hey, maybe you disagree. And if you do, that's fine. You can email us and let us know your thoughts. You can email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. As always, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a star rating. Every little bit helps. We also have a Patreon, Brian.
That's right. If you head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast and subscribe for only $5 a month, you'll find every commentary we've ever done and receive every episode and commentary moving forward absolutely ad-free. We always like to say we're very thankful for our sponsors, but the Patreon is our way of providing an ad-free alternative that offers the most satisfying way to enjoy the show. Plus, your subscription also goes a long way in helping to support us and helping to sustain producing this show. So if you're interested and able, please head over to patreon.com/moviefilmpodcast and subscribe. We'd be very grateful.
Awesome. And as for me, if you're looking for me online, you can find me on social media at Zacky's Corner. That's ZAKIS Corner. You can find me at Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. You can also find my reviews at the San Francisco Chronicle, where, as a matter of fact, my review of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is up there right now. Also at IGN and The Wrap. And Brian, what do you have going on?
As always, episodes I've written of Young Jedi Adventures are currently, it's really kind of fun, like flipping through the channels and seeing episodes I've written. Currently airing on Disney Junior, and Puppy Dog Pals and Young Jedi Adventures Season 1 and part of Season 2 are streaming on Disney+.
There you go. And as we wrap up this episode, I just want to thank our listeners once again for making 2024 our most productive movie film year ever.
Yes. On every front. I mean, in terms of engagement, the one that means the most to us. And I never ceases to amaze me, the correspondence we get and the stories people tell us and the way that they connect to the show and connect to films and their desire to tell us about it. It's very meaningful. I love it.
Yeah. As we head into the new year, we do not know what 2025 will bring, except for one thing, more from us, unfortunately. If you're sick of us, there's more of that, more commentary tracks, and hopefully lots of fun and frivolity in 25.
Can't wait.
Thanks, everybody.
Welcome, friends.